Could you walk through some numbers of kind of like what like a quote unquote average deal would look like? I know there's no average deal, but just for the sake of numbers.
So one of these Burger Kings in Florida, instead of being $750,000, would probably be $1.25 million, $1.5 million, or something like that. But if you put it in the Midwest, it's $750,000, or maybe it's $500,000 kind of purchase price. And then with the age of the building, as the age of the building gets older, the price goes down, but the fix-up becomes more. And so they're within the same matrix, but you're putting more money towards fix-up and less money towards buying the building. And your tenant's trying to come out with some kind of number that makes sense to them. And so how much can you rent that building to them for is a huge piece of the pie. It really matters how much sales these companies can do. And so when these companies can do a much better average unit sales, like a Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's or somebody of that caliber who might sell $3 or $5 or $6 million a year worth of chicken, they can pay a lot more rent than a Jersey Mike's. It matters because these companies need to borrow money too. And when they go to their banker says, okay, your average sales, not this location, which sucks, or this location, which is a freaking rock star, but your average sales for your network of these restaurants is XYZ. And we will loan to you some ratio of your average unit sales to what your rent is. And so when your rent is too high compared to your average unit sales, we're not going to loan you money. And so when we start to analyze one of the key elements, and that's who has the horsepower to pay the rent to be here. So there's a calculation there that I go through on each property, and we narrow that list down to a short list of people who have the horsepower to pay the rent to use that building.
Do you want to do 5 to 7 figure profit deals with me without struggling to find motivated sellers, battling fierce competition, paying thousands for marketing and direct mail? Join me in my 100% free reverse deal finder community. Check the link in the description and let's make some serious profits together.
So we could take a Jersey Mike's, for example, and say, okay, Jersey Mike's, your average unit sales are like $1.3 million a year. $1.3 million a year. If we start looking at that, you could probably, the banks would be cool with you paying about $130,000 a year in rent. We could probably charge you $130,000 a year in rent. In this particular location, because the neighbors are doing so well, you'll probably do very well too. You'll probably be above average. I could probably, and there's some math, we could probably figure out how much more than the $130,000 a year you could charge them. But if you go look at the markets for other Jersey Mike's, they're not happening above the $130,000 kinds of rents because their average unit sales are 100 or 1.3 million. That's how you can figure out how much rent you can charge these people. You can come up with that number for each brand that comes in the door. And there's another piece of that as well. The other piece of that puzzle is how much of the building is being fixed by me and how much of the building is being fixed by them. And so we can look at Aldi, for example. If we take Aldi, and I got an example of an Aldi kind of grocery store on the screen. Let's imagine this was an Aldi. And some of the Aldis will have rents. If we go look at the ones on the market, some of the rents will be like $450,000 a year in rent. It's like, ooh, I wish I could get that, right? And then some of the others are more like $120,000 a year in rent. It's like these contracts were made in the same year. They just got made this year and they're just putting them on the market. What's the difference? The difference is the Aldi that was built on somebody's land that's paying $450,000 in rent, they built the Aldi. I'm flipping them backwards. The $450,000 rent, the landlord put the money up for the building. The $120,000 a year rent, Aldi put the money up for the building. And then there's some rents in between. And it's like halfway in between. The landlord put up half the money. They did the parking lot. They did the utilities. They scraped it. They did a foundation. And Aldi put the building on it or something like that instead of Aldi doing everything. And so you have a moving pendulum that is all within the same calculation. It's math. It's not a mystery of how much that rent is based on who put up how much of the capital to make the thing happen. And so to get down to the bottom line of how much you get to keep by doing this depends on if you're putting up the money or they're putting up the money. The way I structure these deals, it doesn't matter who's putting up the money. We're looking for the spread. We can do the math to figure out how much profit we want to keep on this thing for the kinds of rents that the market could do. And what that might do, if we want to keep more profit on it, it might shorten our list of who has the horsepower to pay the rent to pull this off. But I like to, on these kinds of properties, aim for about a $500,000 spread. That seems to be pretty normal of doing these kinds of buildings in this kind of market. That seems to be a pretty common spread. I mean, sometimes it's 200,000, sometimes it's $1 million. I think the $500,000 spread is a very good number to go after in these kinds of, vacant Burger King, vacant Wendy's, and buildings like that.